Operation Red Flag was Oni's Hail Mary, a last-ditch effort to end or at least prolong the Human Covenant War. The plan called for the deployment of 25 Spartan-IIs, a third-generation smart AI construct, a refitted Halcyon-class cruiser, a decorated naval officer, and an entire battalion of ODSTs. The objective? To capture a Sanshaim hierarch, and use them as a bargaining chip to buy humanity time to regroup and rebuild humanity's naval and ground forces. To achieve this, the UNSC first needed to capture a Covenant flagship. From there, the Spartans would infiltrate the vessel, extract the location of High Charity, and pilot the ship directly into the heart of enemy territory. Once inside, they'd locate, abduct, and extract a prophet alive. A swift and unprecedented strike at the Covenant's political and religious core. Vice Admiral Michael Stanforth began drafting the operational framework in March of 2552, eventually submitting it to Oni's Commander-in-Chief, Admiral Margaret Parangowski. But the plan never came to fruition. The fall of Reach, the loss of key personnel, and a collapsing strategic situation made Red Flag impossible to execute. But how exactly was the UNSC going to pull this operation off? What were the phases of the plan? Why was it ultimately abandoned? And could the operation have been successful? Let's begin with how Operation Red Flag was supposed to work. Phase 1 centered on the capture of a Covenant capital ship, ideally a Siphon-patterned CAS-class assault carrier or a Shawata-patterned supercarrier. This vessel would serve as the infiltration platform for the rest of the mission. To draw one into an engagement, Oni proposed baiting the Covenant by allowing them to discover a major human colony rich in Forerunner artifacts. Unable to simply glass a planet full of their god's relics, the Covenant would likely deploy ground forces to the planet. This would give the Spartans enough time to infiltrate and take over the vessel. Reach was considered a candidate, though staunchly rejected by Stanforth as too valuable to humanity. Though Oni had calculated its discovery as inevitable due to recent Covenant movement patterns. So it was planned that if Reach was discovered, it would be used as the springboard for Operation Red Flag. The UNSC Pillar of Autumn, under the command of Captain Jacob Keyes, was selected to participate in this phase due to its recent upgrades and Keyes' exceptional tactical record, particularly his recent victory at Sigma Octanus IV, where he performed the famous Keyes Loop. Additionally, Vice Admiral Michael Stanforth was prepared to commit significant fleet assets to disable and capture a Covenant ship during the engagement. Phase 2 involved boarding and seizing control of the captured ship. A fire team of 25 Spartan-IIs, equipped with the most recent Mjolnir Mark V power assault armor, would be inserted aboard the vessel, along with their Generation 3 AI. This AI was most certainly going to be Cortana. Their task was to eliminate onboard resistance, secure critical systems, and access the ship's navigational data. The Spartans would be aided by a battalion of orbital drop shock troopers, under the command of Major Antonio Silva, potentially to provide boarding support and security. Once critical systems were secured and the vessel was cleared of combatants, the mission specialist AI would use the ship's navigational data to discern the location of High Charity, the capital of the Covenant, and the home of the Covenant's political leaders, the Hierarchs. Phase 3 called for the human team to pilot the captured ship into Covenant space and reach High Charity. This required expert use of Covenant slipspace drives and stealth systems. technology completely foreign to the UNSC. Oni hoped the mission specialist, an AI, would facilitate navigation and control. With the vessel systems and identifiers intact, the Spartans would use its credentials to infiltrate High Charity's orbit undetected and attempt to dock with the station. Phase 4 was likely the most dangerous. The Spartans would infiltrate High Charity itself and locate one of the Prophet hierarchs: truth, regret, or mercy. Their objective was abduction. Oni's analysis concluded that killing a prophet would only further provoke religious fury and escalate the war. However, Oni's intelligence suggested that capturing one alive could shatter the Covenant's internal cohesion and force diplomatic negotiations. The Spartans would dock with High Charity and attempt to locate one of the prophets, likely using their mission's specialist AI to invade the city's internal systems and locate a hierarch. Stealth would be used if possible, but it was likely that the Spartans would be detected at some point in the operation. The Holy City was home to over 8 billion. Not all would be fit for a combat role, but even if it was just a fraction of that number, the Spartans would be outnumbered by a huge margin. Not to mention that the moon-sized space station would have the most stringent security, especially surrounding the hierarchs. As such, the plan relied heavily upon precision and speed. These overwhelming odds were nothing new to the Spartans, however. They were designed to fight in battles no one else could. Still, this was pushing them near their breaking point. Phase 5. After the capture of the Tier 1 asset, the Spartans would exfil from the Holy City and retreat into UNSC-controlled space. To accomplish this, the Spartan fire team would have to either reach their dock Covenant ship or commandeer a ship to escape High Charity. Once aboard, they could either slip away undetected or need to communicate with the Covenant, reveal they possessed a hostage, and hope not to be fired upon before escaping. From here, the UNSC would attempt to use the Prophet or Prophets' lives as a bargaining chip to pursue a ceasefire with the Covenant. This was hoped to give humanity enough time to regroup and prepare for future engagements. And that is the full operational plan of Red Flag, a complicated and daring plan to prolong the Human Covenant War. Now that we have a full understanding of the details of this operation, let's switch gears and look at exactly why the plan was ultimately abandoned. The simple answer is the fall of Reach. By July of 2552, just months after Vice Admiral Michael Stanforth submitted the operational draft to Admiral Margaret Parangowski, Covenant activity around the Epsilon Aradni system intensified dramatically. Oni's grim prediction that Reach would eventually be discovered came true. The Covenant launched a full-scale invasion of Reach, forcing an immediate shift in all strategic priorities. While Red Flag had been designed to use a Forerunner-rich world, like Reach, to bait the Covenant into committing a capital ship, the UNSC leadership seemed to be caught off guard by the speed of the Covenant's arrival. With the invasion underway, the deployment of all 25 Spartan-IIs gathered at Reach's fleetcom was interrupted. There wasn't any opportunity presented for the capture of a Covenant capital ship. Instead of launching Red Flag, the Spartans were rapidly reassigned to emergency defensive objectives, including the protection of orbital defense generators and evacuation points. During these final hours, many Spartan-IIs were killed or went missing in action. Only a handful survived the ensuing battle. Among them, of course, John 117, who escaped Reach aboard the Pillar of Autumn. The rest of the Spartan fire team intended for Red Flag was either presumed dead or rendered combat ineffective, shattering the operational core of the mission. Compounding this issue was the Pillar of Autumn itself. Originally selected to spearhead Phase 1, the ship was forced to fleet reach with a skeleton crew. Red Flag, as envisioned, required overwhelming precision, personnel, and coordination. The Autumn's retreat, while necessary, marked the effective end of Oni's ability to execute the operation as planned. Elements of Red Flag did briefly persist. When the Autumn arrived at Installation 04, the events that unfolded led to the capture of the Covenant ship Ascendant Justice, and the temporary formation of a mobile UNSC task force. The Master Chief himself expressed interest in continuing the operation. However, by the time he regrouped with other UNSC forces at the glassed planet of Reach, Earth was under direct threat, and Red Flag's priorities no longer aligned with the immediate survival of the human race. Instead, the plan was replaced by Operation First Strike, where the surviving Spartans and UNSC personnel destroyed the Covenant space station Unyielding Hierophant. The capture of the Sudar pattern heavy corvette Ardent Prayer during Operation Uppercut could be considered a completion of the first part of the operation. However, Ardent Prayer was taken over for the sole purpose of destroying the supercarrier Long Night of Solace. To summarize, Red Flag was abandoned due to a number of reasons: lack of opportunity, more pressing concerns, and the rapidly deteriorating circumstances of Reach. Now I'd like to do a bit of theorizing and ask if the operation could have actually been successful. Phase 1 was plausible, though highly dangerous. The UNSC had already engaged and disabled Covenant capital ships in open battle. With Vice Admiral Stanforth ready to commit significant fleet assets, and the Pillar of Autumn under Captain Keyes, one of the UNSC's most capable commanders, it's very conceivable that a CAS-class assault carrier could be lured into low orbit and engaged. The use of a foreigner artifact-rich planet as bait made tactical sense. Covenant doctrine compelled them to deploy forces on the ground rather than glass such a world outright. This would open a narrow window for Spartans to board the vessel mid-engagement or during recovery operations. Phase 2, the actual boarding and seizure of the Covenant ship, was also feasible. The 25 Spartan-IIs were not only elite warriors, but had access to the latest Mjolnir Mark V armor and would be supported by ODSTs and a third-gen AI. The Spartans had trained for shipboarding operations, and the use of an AI to navigate and interface with the Covenant systems was a calculated advantage. A coordinated strike team could certainly overpower a ship's crew, secure control, and access navigational data. Phase 3, piloting the captured Covenant ship to High Charity, would have been more precarious. While Oni hoped Cortana could operate Covenant systems, Covenant AI and slip-space mechanics were notoriously advanced and poorly understood by the UNSC. Any misstep would instantly compromise the mission. Infiltration relied on the ship maintaining a perfect disguise. Though hard, I do think it was plausible. Phase 4, capturing a Prophet, would likely have been a suicide mission. 25 Spartans with full Mjolnir are a force to be reckoned with. Such a group, led by Master Chief himself, could destroy entire armies. But we are talking about High Charity here, the holy city of the Covenant itself. Spartans are highly adept at the type of precision operations that this mission called for. But in these circumstances, there would no doubt be casualties. In Halo 2, the Master Chief was able to fight through High Charity, but these were in vastly different circumstances. The Great Schism and the Flood added a level of chaos that wouldn't be present here. Furthermore, the team would have to find a Prophet. Perhaps with Cortana, they could discern one's location from the ship's systems. But this is definitely not set in stone. it could very well be impossible to find one, given just how large High Charity is. Despite being hard, I do think this phase, again, could be accomplished. Finally, Phase 5. Exfiltration and diplomatic leverage. This is where the plan really falls apart. Exfiltration would again be hard, but definitely possible with so many Spartans. But political leverage? We saw in Halo 2 just how much the Prophets care for one another. Regret was literally left to die by Truth and Mercy, and when Mercy is being killed by a Flood infection form, Truth simply lets it happen. Each Prophet would relish the opportunity to let the others die and gain further authority from it. Unfortunately, Oni's intelligence on the inner workings of the Covenant were simply too lacking in this regard. The Prophets had no loyalty to one another, and likely would have used the capture of one of their own as grounds for further aggression towards humanity. So, although I think the operation itself would have been possible to pull off, it wouldn't have resulted in a ceasefire or prolonging of the war as envisioned. What could have been a much more sound operation would be to bring along a Nova bomb. Had one been detonated inside High Charity, it surely would have destroyed the city alongside any vessels in proximity. If you're unfamiliar, Nova bombs were experimental nuclear devices intended to produce the highest yield possible. We've seen them eviscerate entire planets, so taking out High Charity, which is the size of a small moon, would be no challenge. This would hit the Covenant in a multitude of ways. Most of the Sanchayim leadership would be dead, alongside high-ranking individuals of other species. Much of the Covenant's military force would be eliminated, and the subsequent power vacuum and infighting would relieve much pressure from the UNSC. Ultimately, Operation Red Flag would never make it off paper. Too many complications caused the operation to never come to fruition. And even if it had, it likely would not have had the effect that Oni had hoped for. And that's everything you should know about Operation Red Flag. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. If you did, give it a like and a comment down below. And if you want to see other areas of Halo or other video game lore explored in a video like this, let me know. And again, thank you all for listening.